Hello, everybody. If it's Wednesday, it's Warhammer, and that must mean it's time for another episode of Warhammer Weekly. Joining me, frankly, almost as always, my guest, Paul. Hey, what's up, Paul? How you doing?
Hey, what's happening, nerds? I am quite well this evening. Here for, I've legitimately lost count of the number of times that I've been here, and I'm beginning to be a little bit upset that I don't have an avatar to go on those thumbnails. The dogs have one, for God's sake.
Yeah, well, you see, the trick there is I'm not married to you, Paul. So, like, that does actually influence my decision making, as you might expect. I understand. You being a married man as well, I'm sure you understand that you do
Yes.
make some different decisions for your wife than for your good friends, no matter how good of friends
Yes.
and treasured they are, as you are to me. Uh, but
I truly am a treasure to all.
well, tonight we're going to talk about the things that are the exact opposite of treasure. We're going to talk about the trash,
Yeah.
because we're going to talk about the worst AOS units. It's going to be a good time. We had done a couple positive shows, lots of fun stuff. Now it's time to get back into my balcony Muppet safe space, and just relentlessly hammer things that are badly designed. And that's really where I'm happiest. So we're going to have a fun time, but we're not just going to, it's not all going to be dour. We're going to talk about how also we could fix these things. Because, Paul, these things can be saved and we can do it together.
I completely agree with you.
Yeah,
And I've been having fun toying around with these as well to try and figure out um, how to save some of these different groups of units.
absolutely. The reality is that there's no such thing as like beyond salvation or beyond saving. Like it's pretty easy rules fixes. Even when you just have to accept that the fundamentals are true and then work accordingly. But we'll get into it as we get there, of course. The Sloth Bear said, "I feel as if the Hellstrider pick is foreshadowing." What? It's not a Hellstrider. It's something else. Okay, but let's get into it. Here we go. First off, the rumor engine. It's Alfarius' spear.
I was going to go with Goblin Spit Roasting
Mm-hmm.
Pike.
Yeah. No, it's Alfarius' spear. I know Alfarius. I am Alfarius. That's the joke. But like it's Alfarius' spear. So either they literally borrowed the same file and gave his spear to somebody else, which is entirely possible. Like it could be somebody else wielding his spear. In which case they would be Alfarius because we're all Alfarius. Um, or they're gonna redo Alfarius. Like there's no reason he couldn't still be alive. He had a twin. Which one of them died has always been a point of mystery. He has like all sorts of rumors of him existing, or it could be his twin coming back as well. So whatever, right? Yeah, I don't know, Paul. Like I'm not the deepest 40k lore nerd. I don't know how much you know about it, but basically Alfarius is he's the Alpha Legion Primarch, and he's like they're the sneaky infiltrators. So he's like Mr. Plans within plans guy. So like he's got like clones and people who are say they're him. It's the I am Spartacus thing. If that makes sense.
Uh, yeah, I know next to nothing about 40k lore, um, apart from entertaining things I get from, you know, occasional other YouTube channels.
Yeah, I
That's
mean
about
we'll
it.
see. I believe did I blah, 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 sorry blue. I believe that is true that Dorn did break it, but that doesn't mean that you couldn't remake it or recraft it. Isildur was broken for like 3,000 years, but then they was reforged. So things can get made. I think it'd be really cool if instead if they swerved us and instead of it being Alfarius, if it was Omegon or whatever his twin brother. Because like again, which one of them died is the whole thing. So whatever. Uh, cool, neat stuff. Make more Primarchs. Truly, it is shocking to me, Paul. So like they made when they brought back like the first Primarch, which was like what was the first one? Was it like Magnus or I don't remember who the first one was. Okay, that they actually brought back into 40K. Obviously, they all exist in 30K because they're alive in that game. Like that's part of their that's their whole story. But like they brought back the first one, whatever it was, and I don't remember who exactly the first one they recreated. But every one of those things just seems like printing money. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's shocking to me, like truly. Okay, it was Magnus. I thought so. It's truly shocking to me that they haven't released like two of those a year every year for just the last 5-6 years. Because Magnus was what, like 2018, 2019? You know, he was pre-pandemic. And there's like
Yeah.
3 of them, 4 of them, whatever. I mean, you know, like, obviously there's yeah. So it's just like, it's crazy to me. Like, wow, I don't know. They really slow play some things. I mean, I'll give them full credit for that. So
Yeah. I mean, maybe we can chalk it up to taking extra care with the sculpts. Maybe? I don't know.
yeah, I mean they are
Sculpts are all
huge
gorgeous.
sculpts. I mean, like from what I am to understand, those sculpts are like that's like one of those sculpts is somebody's like a third of their work year probably
Wow.
for big huge centerpieces like that. Yeah. So, because they had, like as far as the entire process goes. So yeah, we're up to 5. Oh, okay, cool, very good, nice, very good. Oh yeah, that's right. Because of I forgot about Angron. Yeah, I forgot Big Bloodthirster Angron. Of course. Yeah, there you go.
It was
Anyways,
super sweet.
surprised they haven't made more. Okay, cool. Anyways, let's get back to AOS news because that's what we're here for.
Yeah.
S2D going on pre-order this this weekend with some obvious changes. Like we're gonna see big changes here, Paul. That's what we've seen just from the articles, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty psyched for it. I do play Slaves to Darkness. I'm playing them this weekend at Du Bois GT, and that's what I've been hobbying on a lot recently. So I I'm really excited for it. I like what I've seen so far, but I mean, they're making a lot more changes than I would have expected after Skaven and Stormcast.
I agree. I agree. Just what we've read in the articles, the way marks and stuff like that, like not even being the same thing at all that kind of stuff. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I guess tuck in. We'll see what happens on the other side of this. On the other side of this, of course, next week will be our S2D review. So tune in for that. By the way, if you're here, welcome. Hit like, hit subscribe, hit things that make dings. Be cooler. You get at least some percentage points cooler every time you click a button on this channel. That's absolutely true. Asterisks, not guaranteed. And also don't forget super chats there. So if you want to do that, hey, it's much appreciated. Yeah, so I'm excited. We'll talk about it next week. Anything in particular, Paul, that caught your eye so far from the various review articles?
Um, Interesting that Legion of the First Prince is coming back.
Mm-hmm.
As an army of renown, I think it was.
I think that's what it was, yeah.
Yeah, and saying that they're bringing in new war scrolls for the demons that you can use in there. Which they didn't clarify if those were also going to be new for the 4 god marked armies, or if it was just going to be only for that army of renown. Thought that was interesting. I really like the idea that the army now is going to be focusing in on one of your heroes, trying to get them to ascend to be a demon prince.
The journey, going on the journey.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I don't know how that's going to work out, and part of that is going to be really dependent on how good a demon prince war scroll looks. But just where we're sitting right now, it has a lot of potential to be really cool and fun.
Yeah.
And have like a narrative element in the game that is relevant to gameplay and mechanically works gameplay wise. I don't know if it's actually going to pan out that way. I'm being optimistic.
We'll see. Yes, and also according to the Facebook thing, rip to the Manticore kits and the Chaos War Shrine. Yep, that's what was circulating around. That is cut out. That was posted by the community team on Facebook. Want to shout out Branu Mate, who super chatted with the acceptable mic appreciation post. Thank you, Branu, for throwing in toward the Get Tom a New Microphone Fund. All the super chats are going into the Get Tom a New Microphone Fund. So for Christmas. So there you go. Thank you. What were you saying? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Soul Grinder is out as well.
Yes, and the Soul Grinder. Was he ever in to begin with, Paul? That's really the question.
I don't know how that survived nearly 10 years of Age of Sigmar. Like a thing that is so clearly just a 40K thing. I don't know.
And also impossible to ever be good because it's on an 8-inch crazy pie plate. I know it's not actually 8 inches, but it's on like the giant pie plate and moves 8 inches and can't fly. So it's just garbage always ever. Yeah.
Yeah. And how the hell are you supposed to attach that to a base? That's what I really want to know.
Very carefully. All right. Last little news item. WCW is this weekend. The World Championships of Warhammer. It's in Hotlanta this weekend. So I'll be watching some of the coverage of that. Very exciting stuff. See what happens. And the coach, AOS coach, our good buddy coach, will be there. He's doing the coverage, the commentary for it. So tune in and watch our good friend AOS coach talk about all the incredible games and plays that are going to be happening. It starts on Friday. And we'll go through the whole weekend up to the final rounds on Sunday. So should be a good time. I've seen some of the stats coming out of it. It's exactly what you think. So
entirely too much Night Haunt.
Well, it's not a huge. There's a little bit less than you think actually of Night Haunt. It's more like the drops are exactly where you would expect them to be. Everybody's basically 2 drops. You know, if you're really playing the super competitive list. Cheers to like I think the couple 5-drop people I saw. You're the real heroes. Because you're right. If you ain't 2, why not go 5? Just go all the way. Who cares at that point? If you're not 2, you might as well be a million. And there's like a minimal preview show on Friday, but I don't know that it really has anything to do with like I don't know that we'll actually see anything. So well whatever. And Morbid everywhere still, Paul. Do you love Purple Sun? Do you love Schnackles? Do you love the Snow Snare Schnackles? Because I know I do.
They can go burn in a hot dumpster fire.
Yeah, indeed. Get ready for lots of those. I'm sure if we look down the top tables, just as I shared from NashCon, that picture, one of my favorite pictures, I lined up table 4, 3, 2, 1, took a shot down there. There was 8 Purple Suns. You could see it in the picture. But it was like playing, it was a fun game of like, where's the 8 Purple Suns? Anyways.
Yes. Even at Holy Havoc, it was like that.
Oh, they're everywhere. People love Morbid. People love the Morbid. So, at any rate, tune in for all that this weekend. Give Coach a shout out. And good luck to everybody who's playing.
And also just other programming shout out. Du Bois is this weekend as well, and we're going to be streaming tables from that as well.
Nice.
It's going to be on Masterpiece Miniatures is the channel it's going to be on.
Very cool. Dig it.
Will the coverage be as good as Worlds? Will it not? Will it have the same sultry voice of AOS Coach? No, it will not. Will it be something good to flip back and forth between if you are going to be absolutely glued to AOS content all weekend? Yeah.
Look, all you need for top-notch AOS coverage, I really believe this, is a decent gimbal, like one of those little handheld gimbal things that makes the phone be stable. Okay. Mm-hmm. Not an expensive one. Like, they make relatively cheap ones. A reasonable cell phone and a decent Wi-Fi connection. Because that's it. Like, that's really it. All the best coverage I've seen of, like, a live game is somebody being able to move around the table and, like, zoom in and, like, actually do the action. So, I don't like the locked-off static cameras. I don't. I want an actual camera guy, and the cell phone gimbal is just the easiest way to do that. Anywho, so that's the news. Paul, let's talk about some pick of the week, shall we? Yeah. What would you like to share with everybody? What do you want to shout out to everyone?
I'm just gonna shamelessly self-promote my own channel, Radio Free Hammer Hall. I've been actually doing some work on this same thing with trying to fix the terrible unit classes in this game. I've done combat heroes and chariots so far. Gonna probably do some of more of the same thing. I know you shouted out my hero one last week, I think.
I did, yeah.
Or week before, and well, I did the chariot one since then. So yeah, we can link to the chariot one down below.
Yeah, I really think this is one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the show, because you're already in the middle of this journey you were on of like you and I had some conversations in the background where we both had identified these unit types that we're going to talk about in some of the examples, and you actually went down the road of like trying to fix them, which I like. I appreciate that. Like, and you know, as is often the case, realistically, there can be many solutions. And you know, you even say this. It's not like you're saying that this is the only way to fix it. You're just giving examples, right, of something you could do.
Yeah.
And so, like, I just do what I ask of you, Games Workshop, who is watching this. Hello, how you doing? Good to see all of you again. Hope you're all doing well. My ask is do something. That's it. Just don't do nothing. Okay? Like, doesn't have to be what we talk about. That's fine. Just something. Do something. Identify the problem. Do something. Okay.
Yep. And for some of these, just make them do something at all.
Yeah, exactly. Artorius says, crazy that SE and Skaven pay for a new copy of the same rules, and we actually instantly went to good codices that change things up immediately after. Well, Artorius, what's really going to be funny is when we get the next battle tome, okay? And it's just an index reprint again. Like, I don't know anything. This isn't Vince telling you that's going to happen because he knows something. This is just me saying that would not surprise me, okay? So my point is, don't over-index on any one thing with GW ever, okay? All right. And Palace Ovidia said, please go shout out Coach. Show GW care when they get an AOS guy to cover the AOS games instead of a 40k guy. Hey, I agree, absolutely. We all need to be there giving Coach the big shout out. He flew all the way from Australia. It's such a long journey. Australia to Dallas to Atlanta. That dude, it's some flights. That's some flights. He spent some time in a horrible plane ride.
Some legendary dedication.
Indeed.
Community.
He is a hero for sure. All right, my pick of the week is going to be our good buddy 2+ Tough Doug, who we both saw at Holy Havoc. And he's got a nice Holy Havoc recap video that I would direct everybody to go check out. Great stuff. Talks about the event. Obviously, Paul and I, you were both there. Like, what was that? This is like a week and a half ago, basically, right? It wasn't even that long ago.
Yeah, it's not that long ago. It was a great event.
Yeah, really fun this year. I was there for part of it, I should say. I left Saturday night because of various and sundry reasons. But I got in 4 good games of Warhammer. Played one Friday night, and then took 3 good games on Saturday. So had a lot of fun.
Thanks.
Steve and I got Reed, who is Steve's son, obviously came over and was like, "Hey, you guys are the ringers. Stop rinsing your opponents." And we're like, "What?" We're just playing the game, man. I don't know. But I played my Daughters of Cain, and it was fun. I like Daughters. Daughters is like less bad Slanesh, like still not good, but like less bad. So, you know, you can do the whole fight twice thing, and it's just like a command point. You don't have to have like a keeper there and then dance around and have a blue moon, and there you go. Anthony says, I don't know why I would call our game good. Oh, sir, we were playing against you and David. So that means it was a good game. I agree. It was fun as all. Okay. Let's talk about some hobby time, my man. What have you been working on, Paul?
Well, I had to like call an audible on a display board. I had a project in mind for my Slaves to Darkness. Life just kind of got in the way. Things didn't come together for it, so I built a like a it'll do for now display board over the last 3 days. It came out pretty good. I posted pictures up on
I saw it.
Instagram, Twitter,
Looks
Blue
good.
Sky.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is at least serviceable. So it was definitely fun to do, and um it amazing what you can do with some cheap molds from oh geez
First Arts Miniatures.
no, it wasn't Hearst. It was blah, 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 blah. Oh, I'm losing the name at the moment. But yeah, for some simple molds for rock faces and some, aquarium greenery.
Yeah, absolutely.
Throwing that on a board, a little bit of flock, paint it
I
up.
mean, the aquarium store has always been the Warhammer terrain store at like bargain basement prices. It's so funny. Like you can
Yeah.
just get such good options there for your terrain. Like, and you can just use it straight on your table, or you can repaint it and have a good old time and build stuff together. Like, it's good. It's good. Absolutely.
Yeah. The only problem that I've ran into was I don't know if it was coated with something or if it was just the material it was made of.
Okay.
Primer would not stick to it. I had to matte varnish it and then prime it in order to get paint to actually stick to the stuff.
Okay. Interesting. Interesting. I'm sure it was actually like, yeah, coated with something. Cygnus asked if it's Woodland Scenics. Was that where it was?
Yes, Woodland Scenics. That's what it was.
Hey, there you go. Cygnus got it.
Got him.
And Anthony says, Paul, you need to hit me up. Dark Fantastic Mills Chaos Citadel stuff would make a great display board. Oh, I bet it would. Anthony, well, Paul, you got to get in line because I got to hit Anthony up for something for February. So, there you go.
Okay.
Yeah, big
Well,
plans.
I've got a 3D printer available, so I just need the STLs.
There you go. There you go. For myself, I have been working on this beautiful bust. I don't know how much this is going to come through, but this is from Natalia. Oh gosh, I'm going to mess up her last name because I'm bad with pronouncing things. But Oracz, Oracz. I'm sorry, Natalia. I met her at Nova. She's awesome. She's a fantastic artist, and she does some of her own sculpts and stuff. And she gave me this little bust, which is wonderful, and I loved it. So you can't. I don't know if you can really tell, but like right now she has skin, but like this area is actually a veil. You can probably see the folds there, right? So
that sounds like an absolute. I'll go with a positive word. An absolute interesting challenge to paint.
Yeah, well, it's going to be a video, so there you go.
Yeah.
So yes, we will. That's funny. TP Grant said Laura was saying Woodland Scenics over and over. Yep, there you go. So at any rate, Jungle Camper, yes, we did of some kind, though we don't know the details yet. At any rate, yeah, that'll become a video about painting sheer cloth on sort of a larger scale. Like, how do you do that? The old, I just chipped away at the marble until the statue, or until David revealed himself, or whatever. But yeah, it's just such a cool effect, and so we're gonna have some fun with it. Okay. So yeah, this is a get back from Monty Sansevino and have a good old time, just like painting something that I find relaxing and fun, and I get to experiment and stuff like that with it. So, not for competition, sometimes just for you. That's good to do that.
Yeah.
All right.
Couldn't do something you love once in a while.
That's right. And I really love this. I really love this model. It's simple. It's a little more academic bust, but that's okay. It still lets me do fun things and just play with paint. And sometimes just playing with paint is good. Oh, okay. Yeah, I can hold on. I'll answer this question. So Dark just said, have you ever had problems with painting GW Forge World resin? I'm helping a friend with a big model, Gargantuan Squigoth, and there are sections that no matter how much you clean, they sweat and paint won't stick. Yeah, sure. So, yes, this will happen. Okay, so so first of all, just don't paint GW Forge World resin. That's like the number one thing I can tell you. It's bad. It's a bad product. It's bad resin.
I've got this guy.
Yeah, sure.
It's going to be a nightmare, but it's got to be done.
Got that Forge World skin. They both have it. Now, the answer to your question is it's still all of the. So there's both release agent that will mess up your primer, but there's also can be in the resin casting process. There's sort of a liquid that's going to slowly. How to say this? I'm trying to find the right word. Like it's not the correct word, but it's going to like through osmosis and evaporate out. Whatever. Anyways, one of the things you can do is you can wipe him down completely with alcohol, with like a cloth with alcohol, and that will help draw some of it out. You can also like put him under a light, like not a hot light, but like a heat lamp or just something warm. Yeah, off gas. Thank you. That's what I was trying to think of. Yeah, thank you. Blue Demon and Crazy Horse. Yes, off gas. That's what I was trying to say. You can put them not like just like something warm. You're not trying to make keep fries hot here, but like just a warm light. Like put them under a light, and heating them up a little will expedite the process. And then again, you can repeat the cloth wipe down with alcohol, and that should cut all of that off. So, anyways, but yeah, it can sometimes happen where it's just gonna off gas that stuff for a while. It sucks. Don't use GW Forge World resin. Yeah, and like you're right, Cygnus. There is a couple of them. I've painted a couple of them in the past few years that weren't terrible, but some of the older ones are just really, really bad. So, okay, cool. Right on. Well, Paul, are you ready to talk about the worst AOS units?
I was born ready.
Yeah, boy, that's right. Let's talk about this presentation that I forgot to reopen after I sent it to you. Like a genius that I am. That's what I did. So now we're going to all watch my little Microsoft starting PowerPoint thing here. Fortunately, it should already be aligned. There it is. Boom. We're there. Yeah, I had to close it to send it to Paul right before the show and then forgot to reopen it. That's so Raven. All right. So anyways, yeah, let's talk about the worst units in AOS. Okay.
Timestamp.
Yes, indeed. Got to timestamp it. Okay. Carson says, Vince, I've really been enjoying your tutorial videos. I just started painting Radakar the Beast using your vampire skin guide. Awesome. Yes, Chadakar rules. He is great. Fantastic. All right. Oh, I'm going to slander Skilla all day long, Manzak. Manzak, did you miss the whole thing where we literally put that character as far down as we could? We made a lot of fun of Manzak last week, or 2 weeks ago, sorry. Or not of you, sorry, not of Manzak. I would never make fun of you because you are an incredibly talented sculptor and an artist. No, we were making fun of Skilla. I apologize, Manzak. Okay. Let's see here. So, summary. Let's start here. All right. We already covered what I call the significant 7. The 7 unit types that have play in AOS 4.0. Today, we are going to discuss the other side of that sword, their mirror, the yang to their yin. The worst unit types. Those unit types that have somewhere near approaching 0 playable examples. In fact, in some of these, it will literally be 0. Okay?
Yep.
Now, they can be unplayable for a variety of reasons. Which could be points, could be fundamentals, could be actual game effect or what they can do, could be lack of a defined role, could be that they cause an extra drop, and so on and so forth, right? Okay. So...
or some combination of the above.
Or some combination, exactly, yes. Or multiple of the above, yes. There are some of these where it's just like, all of the above, yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Like, nope, you missed completely. For the most part, these units should be avoided in your lists outside of either sometimes these units can actually become good because what will sometimes happen is if they don't have the problem with points, what can weirdly happen is they'll get cheap enough to where if you just spam the living bejeezers out of them, you can have like a spam meme list that's actually okay and silly, but like I wouldn't ever do that because are you really going to collect like 30 or whatever of these terrible units that you know aren't going to that they're going to tamp down on those spam lists right away? Like it's always a sucker play, right? Nick Fury, are you worried about who's going to win the army painting competition with Ninjon? No. 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 No, he'd have to actually finish it, number one. And number two, he'd have to come to a place where anybody would evaluate his army. So, and since neither of those things will happen, it's easy to win a race when you're the only one running, Nick. That's what I'll say. So, and there are ways these units could be saved, and we will talk about them. All right, so that does that sound about right as a summary to you so far, Paul?
Yeah, absolutely. There's just there really are some things that you could spam. I feel like there's less of those than there have been in the past. I struggle to think of which ones you can really spam effectively right now.
Yeah, well, I'll give an example. I do have one. We'll highlight it when we get there. But
Yep.
the the list that always comes to my mind is you remember the very silly cities like unicycle chariot spam list that was popular there right when the Zinch and
Yep.
KO books released, right? That's a good example where like if you just had one of those in your list, it's a complete waste. But they got so cheap you could take like 18 of them, and then it was just enough dumb units that could do enough board control that it actually became good. Somebody said you were loud compared to me. Does everybody else think Paul is loud compared to me? You shouldn't be. You should be actually pretty controlled. But I looked and we're not. You're not spiking any higher than me. We're both at the same place.
Maybe I just need to talk more quietly.
No, it's fine. You talk in your normal voice. I'll fix it. I'll fix it on this side.
Are you sure you don't want the sexy voice? I can turn on the sexy voice.
You do you, Paul. You talk however you like. Okay. Whatever's gonna make you feel better. All right, so that's our summary. If Paul is loud, people tell me, and I corrected you or I turned you down just a little bit, but you should be pretty controlled. Okay, so let's get into it here. So we had the significant 7, Paul. We call this the feeble 4. Okay, now the reason I like feeble is because there's sort of a 5th-ish one here that you and I can argue about at the end. Okay. Yep. But I didn't officially put in the list because I do think it's different. Okay. And I'll talk about why, but we'll get there. But even if we both agreed to add it, it would still be the feeble 5 then. And so it's the alliteration still works. Okay. All right. So the feeble 4, here we go. First off, foot melee heroes. Foot melee heroes are those with little to no utility that are not wizards or priests. They're often a complete miss solely because they cost a drop, and even if they don't cost a drop, their points to wounds damage ratio is very poor. They have low control, often low defense comparatively, low wounds for the amount of points you're paying, low damage from the amount of points you're paying. You're basically almost always better to just take 10 more of some infantry or 5 more of some cavalry, which are usually cheaper than these dorks. Okay. I picked the 4 representatives I've got here on the slide. Is Sigvald, the Mega Boss on foot, the Deathmaster, and the Chaos Lord. And I picked again all of these for sort of iconic reasons. By the way, the Sigvald I picked is the incredible one painted by Kaha that she won silver with at Golden Demon 2023 and Adepticon. And the Mega Boss is the Mega Boss that was done by David Soper. That is also absolutely like mind-bleedingly incredible. So, yes. The other 2 are just the stock photos. Okay. So, let's talk about these sort of like I made these guys kind of representatives, Paul. All right. So Sigvald first. Sigvald costs a drop, is one of the best foot assassins in this category, right?
Mhm.
Like, makes usually a decent number of attacks, so on average between 5 and 7. Has always
Yep.
strikes first, can be given crit 2 hits and run and charge, right? Through making it ecstatic, or whatever, euphoric, sorry. Um, and like ignores ward saves. By all accounts, this should be a takeable hero, right?
Yeah.
But I have taken this hero, and let me tell you what usually happens with this guy. Like, yes, Sigmar has delivered a few times for me, but most of the time, what happens is you send in. Oh, and it has a good ward save too. Good save, good ward save.
Hmm?
But Sigvald's quite expensive for what do you get out of him. He often will like charge in, do okay damage, because even with all those benefits at his disposal, he's still not the equivalent of usually what you're getting out of like 260 points of some heavy cav unit, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And he has, even with his ward and all of that, he still doesn't have the wounds to take the punishment that, like, for that amount of points, you're going to get like at least 15 plus wounds of cav, maybe more.
Yeah.
Right. Probably potentially on the same save, now without the ward, obviously, but they could have other synergies going on. And these that's the thing. These heroes often have like no other synergies, right? They're like so many things in the game now say pick a non-hero unit, right? They've just turned off so much hero synergy. It's funny because these foot melee assassins are exactly the people that needed those synergies to do anything, right?
Yeah, it's true.
And so what happens is he runs out there, he does some amount of damage, gets countercharged, dies. End of Sigvald.
Mm-hmm.
And he doesn't usually actually trade his points. He's like, I love him. He's so good. But at one, he's not worth a drop. He should, like, if he becomes a bonus hero, maybe he's a little better. That helps. If he was a bonus hero and a little cheaper, now we'd be talking, right?
Yeah.
Okay. To me, I picked him because he's like actually the best of bad. Does that make sense? But he's still bad.
I mean, I definitely agree with you that he's on the cusp of being playable, I think.
Yep.
For this unit category. Now, my only rules question on him is with his variable attacks.
Yeah.
If you use a command point to re-roll his charge roll, do you use the second roll or the first roll for his attacks characteristic?
The second roll.
Okay. So, I mean, I think that gives him a slight edge in, it's going to cost you a command point, but you have a second bite at the apple to get more attacks with him. So, I think, to me personally, I think he's actually over the line in being okay. I would play with him mainly because I love foot melee heroes and, mounted melee heroes. Is he competitively playable? Probably not.
Yep. The issue with him is primarily the drop thing, right?
Right.
If he just became not a drop, he'd be so much better because his regiment isn't great, and he's not what you want to be taking as like that. You just don't have space for him, right? As a leader of one of your regiments is what it comes down to usually. Carson, sure, this may be a silly question to everyone else, but being new to Warhammer, could you give me an idea of what the term 1, 2, or 3 drop signifies? I'd be happy to, Carson. So each hero leads a regiment, and those are basically units they can take. The general can have 4 units with them, everybody else can have 3. That's how you build your army. Each regiment is a drop. Whomever has lower drops gets to decide who goes first, which is incredibly potent. So if you are 2 drops and your opponent is 3 drops, then you are going to get to decide, being 2 drops, who goes first, which is immensely powerful in sort of setting the overall tempo of the game, in giving them bad choices, all of that kind of thing. Right now, the game is very circled around like 2 drops being the thing you want to be. Okay. Okay. All right. So next up, then, Paul, let's go to the Auric Mega Boss, right? This is your classic foot big basher hero who has like a little bit of buffs for his particular types of troops he wants to fight with, which in this case is brutes. Now, one of those is just impossible to use. Okay. Have you played with this guy? Have you played Ironjawz much at all?
I have not played Ironjawz really ever, I don't think.
That's fine. For those who, yeah, Bastion does not fall in this category. He's okay. Bastion's on the other side of playable. We'll talk about people like him in a minute. This is the category with some exceptions. The most exceptions. The Orc Mega Boss, so he can like on a dice, I think it's on a, I want to say it's on a, it's either on a 2-up or a 3-up. I apologize, I can't remember right off the top of my head. In the hero phase, he can give like a unit of brutes +1 attacks. Okay, so that's a good ability. Then in the combat phase, when he fights, he has an ability he can activate where on a 3-up, he makes other brutes in his combat range get +1 attack. But he does not pull the unit in.
Yeah.
Okay? So let me explain the choice you're actually making when you fight with this guy. So let's just optimal this situation, Paul. You ready? I've got 5 brutes, the mega boss in the middle, 10 brutes. I charged somehow, some miracle of miracles, I am the one who got the charge with these 4-inch moving units into my enemy. Let's just imagine that's the case. Okay. Nobody has strikes first, so I get first activation. Okay. Now my choice is I could activate with the 10 brutes and potentially do a lot of damage. Right? Or I could activate with this loser who isn't going to do basically any damage. Roll a die, hope I get a 3-up. And then if I do, both of those units of brutes are going to get +1 attack. But they won't get to go because I don't have access to good smashing and bashing anymore. So instead, what happens is now the enemy, who I did not materially damage because I attacked only with my crappy Mega Boss, is then going to go and beat the living tar out of the brutes. Okay. Okay. So this is bad design. And, like, this is the classic foot melee hero paradigm that a lot of these people fall into. He does not do enough damage. He has no ward. Yes, he's on a 3-up save. Who cares? He has, like, 8 wounds. 8 wounds on a 3-up save is nothing in the damage ratio of the current game. Like, that just goes away like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And his buffs aren't worth it. His damage isn't worth it. He has no good objective control. He's slow. And he's like, by the way, Paul, this guy's like 230 points.
Yeah, it's way too much.
This guy is the classic example of failing everything we talked about earlier. Right? This is the all of the above failure. Okay. So it's really a shame because he's obviously like an amazing model. And such a cool concept. Just a complete whiff on every front. To fix him, undo all of that, I guess. I don't know. Okay, so next up I have the Deathmaster. Now the reason, Paul, I picked the Deathmaster is because one, we're going to talk later. I borrowed a slide from one of your presentations, from one of your episodes you did. This guy actually is a bonus hero. Okay, like he doesn't cost a drop. But he also costs 160 points and does nothing. So this is that lack of a defined role, right? And like we're going to do your rebuild, so we'll talk about him more in a minute. But like I think you and I were both vastly disappointed by like this assassin.
Yeah, an assassin should be able to kill somebody,
right?
Right? Like that's their job. It's what they do. Maybe they don't. Especially because it's Skaven, you shouldn't be able to do it reliably. But, I mean, you should be able to just, gank somebody.
Yeah, like realistically, if he gets one-on-one against another equivalent foot hero or caster or something like that, you should be guaranteed that they're dead at the end of that fight. But that is not what happens here with this guy.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Abaddon said, would turning them into 40k style unit attachments be a workable solution? We don't need to go that far. I saw a couple people mention this. And my answer is you don't need to go that far. We don't need that. We're going to talk about examples where these characters actually work. We just need to be accepting of what they are, right? Like, if you're not a wizard or a priest and your utility is minimal, you're a bonus hero, period. You should be getting into other people's regiments. That's number one. Mm-hmm. Okay. Number two, we have to accept that these guys have very limited synergy now. And so, like, their damage has to go up, or their utility has to go up, or there's something. There has to be some kind of reason or role to take them. And, like, just being an extreme damage machine is fine. Either that or they need to get so ungodly cheap, right? Like, that would also be an option. Where these guys are all like I don't know if I'd pay 80 points for the Deathmaster. Really. And that's half of what he currently is. Right? So at any rate, like, you could fix this stuff. We don't need to go for, like, I'm generally opposed to, like, let's try to do one. Silver bullets often fail and have lots of secondary consequences. Okay? Because, like, the second you open up that, like, attachment thing, then you got everybody's, what if the wrong people get the wrong attachments and they're too protected? Like, just do the work of making the individual scrolls valid. That's the actual work here, right? It's harder, it's longer, it's more complicated, but it's the correct word. It's the correct work. That's what it comes down to. Okay. All right. By the way, if you haven't hit like yet or subscribed or do all those things, do all those fun things. And don't forget there's super chat there. You can make your voice heard for in the Get Tom a New Mic fund. Last up, Paul, I've got the Chaos Lord on foot. This guy has the old pull-in sequence. It's just dumb and isn't worth anything. And the pull-in sequence alone, it doesn't matter. Like, skipping is okay, but you got to give some kind of good bonus, and you have to pull in a unit that matters. This guy does neither of those things. No, bonus doesn't matter, and the unit doesn't matter. So what are we doing here?
And just a slow foot slogging hero that,
yep.
Your only really good option to pull in is, like, Chosen. And even then, it's like a unit of, like, 10 Chosen is going to delete something on its own. It doesn't need the +1 to wound that he's going to give them.
Right. I just don't find, like, that bonus is fine. It's okay. And I appreciate that he pulls in Chosen, but I don't need him to pull in Chosen. I don't need to spend a drop to have the Chosen pulled in. He's not, like, the Chosen were already killing everything with Crit Mortal. Like, he's just excess points because he's not cheap either. This is the problem. Again, like, there is a build of this guy that I would take that would for the pull in and try to execute that maneuver. Okay. And it would be if he was a bonus hero and he was cheaper, right? Then maybe I would think about it. Because at least then there's, like, something happening there. But as it stands, no. Now, as I said, this is the category with the most exceptions. So let's talk about some potential exceptions and why. Okay?
Right.
All right. So, first off, I've got the Light of Eltharion, who, in my estimation, is one of the few foot melee assassins who actually achieves his goal. Because his main weapon is, like, Rend 3, right? Or something like that. He actually does, like, a significant amount of damage and is ethereal on the backside of that, right? Now, he still costs a drop. He's the sort of, he is right across the line from Sigvald to me. Does that make sense? Like, they're standing on opposite sides of the fence looking at each other, but they're, like, 2 feet apart. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
It's not like you see the Light of Eltharion in a lot of competitive lists. That's why this is potential exceptions, not definite exceptions.
Yeah.
But, like, he actually does cross the barrier of, like, if you look at how many points he costs versus the damage he deals and his durability, yeah, he can get there. But he's still slow. He's still expensive, right? He's, like, there's just, he's, again, I want to be very clear. If, like, let's imagine that on the 1 through 10 scale, you have to be a 5.0 to be playable. That's the bar here. Everybody else we talked about already is less. Light of Eltharion, 5.1. Right? So I'm not saying he's, like, great, put him in your list immediately. Okay? I'm saying, like, he's there.
Yeah.
Okay.
If he is your pet unit, you are not punished for taking him.
Yeah, you're not immediately losing because you took this dude. Yes. Yep.
Mhm.
Okay. Next up is I've got the Warlock Galvanier here.
Mhm.
Um, these little dorks are a drop, but they happen to be in an army that generally is okay with being higher drops. Like I played a lot of Skaven, and I don't care about drops. I've just accepted my fate in my life that I have to be a million drops, and as Skaven, you just never get to choose who go first. Right? That's just part of it.
Mhm.
And he has a decent little shooting attack himself that can actually do some good damage. So that's useful. That's a roll, right? Do some shooting damage. The fact that all your heroes have decent
Yeah.
shooting profiles is actually useful because, like, many times in a clutch, I've been like, okay, I turn all of my heroes, we all shoot this thing, and like the heroes kill the thing I need to kill, right? To free up to free up the unit that's attacked or whatever. And he can make your your Scourgers, sorry, your Warplock Scourgers, quite good, right?
Mhm.
And that he has a once a game buff that's quite good for them. Now it sucks that it's a once game buff that's still on a roll, as per usual. I hate things like that. I hate once a game plus then roll a die. Awful combination. But it
Right.
is on a 2-up, so I guess I'll take what I can get here.
Yeah. I mean, and it is Skaven.
It is Skaven. And it's a good buff. It's a good buff. Um
And what is the buff? I'm not familiar with that
oh
one.
sure. So the normally the Warplock Scourgers, which are the anti-cav shooter guns, which are really good. Now this unit's fairly expensive. It's like 190 points for your unit of 3, which is 6 wounds on a 6-up save for 190 points. I want to be super clear about what you're paying for here. Okay.
Ouch.
Yeah. Ouch is right. But anyways, these little dorks, each one of these little dorks makes 2d6 shots normally. Okay. And good range, good hit, wound, rend, damage, all of that. As I said, it's anti-cap, which is cool. And crit 2 hits. Um, But so at 2d6 shots, you're averaging 7 per guy, so you get 21 shots out of a unit, right? So if you reinforce them, you get 6 of them. It's 42 shots out of the unit. Again, on like rough averages, yeah.
Mhm.
Um, he sets their attack profile to 10. So out of the unit of 3, you get 30. Out of the unit of 6, you get 60, which
Yeah.
is pretty cool. So it's a material increase to their damage, obviously.
Mhm.
Especially with having crit 2 hits, that only then further multiplies out the number of crit 2 hits you get, right?
Mhm.
More dice you roll means more chances of crit 2 hits, obviously. So this guy crosses the line because even though he is basically just a little shooter with a once a game buff, that once a game buff is like good enough, and he himself does enough little shooting that I'm okay with him. Again, he should still be a bonus hero. He should be. He just should. Okay. All of these non-wizard dorks should be bonus heroes. I should not be paying a drop for this. But uh like he can again potentially cross the line. Now let's talk about the most BA dude on this list, the Lord Executioner in Night Haunt. Paul, have you read the Lord Executioner scroll?
I have not.
Let me tell you what. This dude. This dude is the gas. Okay? This is how you design a this is how you design a um an actual like scroll. This is it. Okay? All right. So, let's just explain here. So, the Lord Executioner, he's a Night Haunt, ghosty boy, of course. So he's 8-inch, fly, move, 5 health, 2 control, 4 up, ethereal save. Right? Nothing too impressive so far. Damage wise, he's got 5 attacks on 3s, rend 2, damage 2. But he's anti hero +1 rend, and of course he's Night Haunt, so he's got crit auto wound. That's fine. That's a perfectly acceptable damage profile. Right?
Mhm.
Rend 2, damage 2 is fine. All right. He's 150 points, by the way, and he is a bonus hero. He can join an eligible regiment as a cursed soul. So this guy's a bonus hero, already in the bonus hero territory. But the reason you take him is because of his staring death in the face. Once per turn, any combat phase. So this is a pre-fight combat ability.
Yep.
Pick an enemy unit in combat with this unit to be the target. Effect, roll a die. On a 2+, subtract 1 from the attack's characteristic of the target's melee weapons for the rest of the turn. In addition, if the target is a hero, subtract 5 from the target's control score for the rest of the turn. This is the gas. What an amazing pre-fight combat ability, right? 2 up, -1 attacks. Like, what?
Huge.
Huge. And also when he gets with enemy heroes, he can just sap their control score out to basically say he's generally going to set most heroes to 1, right?
Yep.
Fantastic. Awesome on the countercharge because he's a ghost and he flies. He can just kind of hide behind stuff and then countercharge over the top and just apply the penalty. He's great. And 150 points is worth every penny.
Yep.
Exactly correctly designed hero. Do this. The reason I included this guy is because to me, he's the template for how these things should be made.
Right. Now, for this one in particular, I would say he's almost in a different category. Maybe, in my opinion, would be in a different category because he's doing a very utility sort of thing. He's not getting in there to just do damage.
Well, let me say this. The reason I like this is because it's not a utility buff in the traditional sense, right? So, like, the heroes that I'm worried about, that we don't want to get in the world of living in again, is where you have, like, 6 buff heroes that sit around and, like, and then just, like, hump a unit into being exceptionally awesome, right? The reason I like this design is because his ability doesn't buff any other unit. It's just him. It's him having a cool one-on-one debuff that is good, right? Doesn't make any of your units better. I mean, theoretically, it helps them survive, of course, just in general, if he applies the penalty. But, like, he's not sitting there supercharging one of your units. You got to get him in the thick of it to use it, right? It's a combat phase ability. He's got to go fight, right? But that's why I still think he's in the category, okay? Because if he were doing, like, on a 2+, give a unit +1 attacks, I'd be like, okay, totally, right? If it was the inverse. Does that make sense? But that's the kind of thing I wish they would do with these guys. That's kind of what you designed on a couple of your heroes, like what we'll talk about in a minute with the Deathmaster, right? Where it's like, no, just he's good at a particular job, right? Like this guy really hurts other enemy heroes when he gets into combat with them because generally like -1 to their profile, especially like multi sort of, weapon profile heroes really get hurt by that. So I made the mistake once of getting a Keeper of Secrets into combat with this guy. And I regretted it deeply.
It's a bad day.
It is a very bad day. Yes. My greater demon was cowed by this 150 point dork. Right? Okay. Ugh, I don't know. I have no explanation for you. On why he's not just cheaper, he's 80 points cheaper, my friend. For the effective same number of wounds, by the way, because he's on a 4-up ethereal save, 6-up ward. Technically, he has more wounds. Okay. Anywho, and then lastly, the Grimwrath Berserker, because again, little dude, little bonus hero guy, can go like, and it's funny. This is the spam list example, Paul. Here it is.
Yeah.
We got here, right? This is the thing where, like, we've all seen the take 50 million of these idiots army where you just, like, take all Grimwrath Berserkers or whatever, right? And he can join a regiment as a Grimnir's Chosen. You can take a bunch of these dudes. They actually do quite a bit of damage. Yeah. Oh, sorry, yes. Thank you, Mark. Mark, he does have a 5-up ward. I apologize. He has more wounds than the Mega Boss, who's 80 points more. Yeah. So yeah, but like he's fine. He's a fine little foot hero, dude. He has bonuses and does cool things. It's fine. Like he has his oaths. It's cool, right? So yeah, and he always fights twice and so on and so forth. Like yeah, it's good.
Yeah. One of the things that just bugs me with how the regiment thing has been designed in general,
Mm-hmm.
I would think your heroes that are leading regiments should be the sort of guys that are leading troops, right? Like if
Yeah.
you're just like a solo actor, why is a Light of Eltharion leading anyone?
Right. He's not. Yeah. This dude. This unspeaking ghost armor. That's who we follow. Right. It's like the old three bloodthirsters following the dog Karnak, the dog general around. Right. Like it just what's
Yeah,
going on here.
yeah. It, it just fails the flavor test.
Yep. I agree. All right. So this was your fixing of the Deathmaster. I brought it over here. What I liked about this, Paul, is you didn't change the points at all. Right. You kept it 160 points. You
Yep.
kept basically the core stats the same. Still move 7, health 5, control 2, save 5 up, right?
Yep.
The difference is you gave him back crit mortal on shooting, which I know that like they're very against. So
Yeah.
like they don't want any crit mortal in the game on shooting attacks. Though I would argue on a like little single foot hero, if you were going to do it at all, that's fine.
Yeah. And
Um
that's what we do have on Gaunt Summoner,
sure.
right?
The and then you actually made his melee attacks worthwhile because yes, as you point out, his normal attacks are 3s and 4s, rend 1, damage D3, crit mortal, anti-hero +1 rend. What is this? What
Yeah.
is this? Like 5 attacks, you hit with 3 of them, you wound with 1 or 2 of them, 1.5, right? And then maybe they make a save. Like what? And then you do damage, 1.5 damage. Like his average damage to an enemy hero with a 4-up save, right, is approaching 1 to 2. This is not an
Right.
assassin. This is not an
Yeah.
assassin.
And then his abilities are very meh.
Yeah.
Like, why is an assassin
Buffing other
buffing
Nation
other
units.
units?
Yeah.
Like you would think that a little ninja rat is going to be a solo operator.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and,
He should
and the
not
can
have
only be
any
hit
buff.
on a 5+ thing is,
Yeah.
like I do like that. Like I think that fits with the whole ninja rat concept.
Sure. It's a callback to his classic rule he had back like that he had back when in the day in Warhammer Fantasy.
Yep.
So like I agree with you. The buff is stupid. By the way, Night Runners should just like run and shoot on their own. Or yeah,
Yeah.
run and shoot. They should just do that. They used to just do that. That was a thing. Like what? It's not breaking the world with their little their 4s and 4s attacks.
Mhm.
But I like yours, which is your change here is to make him 3s and 2s, rend 2, damage D3. I would have also accepted, by the way, like 3s and 3s, rend 3. I would have taken that as well. Like just give him a bunch of rend, right? So he
Yeah,
slices, so
that
because like
works too.
he's cuts through real easy. That's fine, right? So again, the point isn't that you've created some platonic form. It's that like this is a ass solution. There may be many, right? But what I really liked was you set him up in reserve. He may be set up in your movement phase within 3 inches of any terrain feature and more than 6 inches from enemy units. It's fantastic. He sneaks out of the terrain, just like the little Skizik or whatever his name was. The assassin group in 3.0 came out of terrain, could be set up 6 inches away. It was great. We lost that awesome unit we had, right?
Mhm.
And if a melee attack scores a critical hit, one model with a health characteristic of less than 10 is slain. I would probably reword that some because we don't generally pull on the health characteristic, but conceptually, I liked what you're going for, right? So if with his 5 attacks he gets a crit, dead hero, or just dead some random guy. But obviously, you don't want to put him into a bunch of troops that are going to just kill him back because he's not very tough.
Right.
What you've done
My
here is
idea
make him
there.
he is an assassin, and your abilities have meant you're going to try to put him in reserve, set up. You make your opponent play differently, and then you're going to try to get him into pop him out of terrain and go kill their caster, or something.
Right.
Yeah.
And he's not going to survive long.
Right.
Um, you know, you're still, even though it's only 6 inches away, you still have to make a charge roll. Like there's still some risk involved. Um, and my thinking was, he's going to be able to crit kill, one guy in a unit for sure.
Right. Which is just like, who cares? Who cares? It's worthless. Like, if you're fighting, like, you're not going to send him into a 20, 30 man unit or whatever. 40 man unit, sorry. 20, 40 man unit.
Yeah.
You're not going to have him go charge 15 cav or 10 cav, sorry.
Exactly.
He's just going to turn around and get smacked and die. What you've given him here abilities wise is a set of abilities that are going to create a very specific play pattern through the natural incentives you've created. And that's why I liked this design a lot and why I wanted to talk about it. Mm-hmm. Kuhal says he instantly kills Elena and Elithor, so I'm all for it. Nice. And Lodovica said, I think they'll be very hesitant to change hit wound stats, as that was one of their goals of the edition, to make things of stats look like what the race should be capable of. Here's the thing about that. That's dumb when it comes to heroes. That's my simple answer. I mean, maybe you're right, maybe you're wrong. I'm just going to say that's dumb. Because, like, I like the idea perfectly fine and think it's absolutely appropriate when it comes to, like, the mass of your troops. Like, what your goblin stabbers hit on and your brutes and, right? Like, the masses of your troops, your units, yeah, they should all resemble, like, the average. And that is completely apropos and makes exact sense. This is like a Deathmaster of Clan Eshin. This is a hero. Their Thaco didn't go up at all over the levels. Like, what? They did no. Pick whatever edition of D&D you want. Like, in every edition of Warhammer, literally ever, we had the very reasonable belief that as people got more powerful, they got better at doing things like fighting. Right?
Right.
Why are we still how did we suddenly decide in this edition to be constrained by nonsense? It's stupid. A mega boss should not hit on 4s. He shouldn't.
Yeah.
He's a more skilled combatant. And so on.
Yeah.
And clearly they're willing to do it for some characters. Why not?
I don't think those should be rules. They should be more of guidelines, really, shall we say.
That's right. Exactly. They're not really rules. It's more of guidelines. You best start believing in ghost stories, Miss Turner. You're in one. All right. So, I'm always ready to do my Barbosa impression. I'm pretty proud of that one. Exactly. I agree, Ranu.
When I was just kind of doing the math on a lot of these heroes, what I was finding is if you basically just keep them the same and you just double their damage output, you're still not going to play with most of them.
Sure.
Like they're really, really lacking in their power.
Exactly. Yeah. So Cygnus is asking you, why didn't you give him strike first?
I don't know. It just wasn't something I thought of.
Yeah. I mean, I'll say I think you could do it, but if I was going to give it to him, I'd give it to him on the charge only. Right? So, he should, again, because it would just fit into that play pattern. Sets up 6 inches away, pops out of terrain, goes, sa-sa, and he doesn't get in the way of your other fights. Like, he sneaks out and assassinates the guy, and you still get to pick your normal fight orders. But then when somebody charges him on their next turn, he doesn't get to, strike first and kill his way out of it or something, right?
Right.
So, okay. Cool. Next category. All right. Next category is non-hero monsters. Non-hero monsters have very little play in most lists, as you are vastly overpaying for wounds and damage. Compared to similar costed infantry or cavalry blocks, they have less damage, less health, less synergy, less control, less defense. There is often literally no reason to utilize these models. Once again, we will talk exceptions.
Way too expensive.
Yes, but they are just all over the shop. There's not as much need to go into super detail here. I picked the Brood Terror, who like actually has decent damage. Okay, it's decent. But he's got a 5-up save. He has some decent healing, but he's 12 wounds on a 5-up save. He's never going to see that end of turn healing. That's not happening. Okay. Anything looks sideways at this guy in AOS 4, he explodes. Give me a break. So that's right there. And he's 3 hundo points. I'm sorry, what? Like,
Yeah. You know, the thing that I keep coming back to with a lot of these is like thinking about like internal balance in an army and comparing it to other units in that army, right?
Yep.
Like if you're like pretty much all of these things, whether it's a hero, a monster, what the other things that we're going to talk about later,
Yep.
Right? Like they're less wounds, less defense in general. Like they're going to absorb less damage than everything else. So I would think, like if you're trying to balance this points wise, and point for point, these should have more offensive power than a comparable unit that has more defense overall.
More defense, more health, more synergy, more control. Yes.
Yeah. So these sorts of things should be like absolutely blasting your opponent on offense.
Yep.
And they're just not.
That's right. That's right. That's exactly right. Let's do some quick math here. Ready? Ready, Paul? We're gonna do some fun quick math. Okay. The Brood Terror is 300 points, and he does like let's call it okay damage. Okay. Like I can bring up his actual stats if we're that curious about it, but it's not great. Okay. In fact, let's just reference this so we can actually do the math. I'm sorry because I don't know it all off the top of my head. Okay, here we go. Brood Terror. Of course. Hold on. Nope, I can't tell you because it's locked and I don't have my book near me. All right, so never mind. He's whatever. He's got a ranged attack and 2 melee attacks. Whatever. One of them's 3 damage, rend 2, yada yada. Okay. For that same 300 points, I can take 6 rattling guns. Rattling guns, that's still 12 wounds, by the way. It's on a 6-up save instead of a 5-up save. It is way more control. Okay, not that I'm ever using my rattling guns for control. I'm just pointing things out. So it's the same health. It's better control. And damage-wise, it is 18 d6 shots on very likely 3s and 3s. Rend 1, once in a while, Rend 2, damage 1. So it averages something like 63 shots.
Yep.
Which one of these 2 units is going to do more damage?
Absolutely the rattling guns every time.
It's not even close. It's not even close. And by the way, if you don't like that pick, I'll pick something else. Like I could keep going, right? Like that's just one example. Okay. Yeah. So like,
I mean, that's an average, what, like 10, like probably like 15 damage, right?
It's really, it's high. It's really high. Yeah.
Like this guy should be running up and smashing an average of like 12, 15 damage.
Especially since he's got to go walk up and do it. Like, yes, he has a shooting attack, but it's not good. It's Garbo, right? Like his right. damage is actually in melee. Whereas these things can sit back, 3 claw steps, shoot off turn, right? Do all the stuff you want to do, right?
Yeah.
While risking nothing, being invisible next to clan rats.
Yeah, and just another thing to add, I've been toying around with a lot of different units, and like those incidental sort of shooting attacks, they are pointing those way too high.
I agree.
Like they're worth almost nothing, and they seem to be treating them on par with melee attacks.
Yep, I agree.
Nope. Not even close.
Completely agreed. Lodovicus says 4 Doomflayers, similar points. Yeah, 260 points for 4 Doomflayers. Punk him completely. Boy, are you not wrong, Lodovicus. Like I would take 4 Doomflayers every day and twice on Sunday before I took this guy. The comparison is laughable. And that's another melee unit, right? Those things do god awful amounts of damage. I don't know if you've gotten to play against 4 Doomflayers yet, but man, it's fun. Those things are wild, man. It's wild.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm gonna run to the restroom real quick. I'll just let you.
Yeah, you go ahead. I'll
right
keep talking. So next up is the Mutalith Vortex Beast. The Mutalith Vortex Beast. The problem with him is his rule is goofy. It's not good enough, even though most of the debuffs are like the whole game. He's always been bad. Again, we have the same problem of like, if his little vortex shot real debuffs that had real effects, not nonsense, he could be a really good unit. Like, he could be worth having 12 wounds on a 5-up save. But nope, he doesn't. He just fires nonsense, and it's random and whatever. Terrible. Charybdis just does no damage and is generally bad. Again, you don't ever get to healing if you don't live. Like, it's pointless. There's no points cost where the Charybdis is worth taking. And I put the Terrorgeist in here, but like the Foot Terrorgeist or whatever, because big dumb monsters like this that hit on 4s and, even when they fly and have a lot of mobility, are generally worthless. There's only like one corner case build where he can be interesting, and that's in a build with Nagash where Nagash can like bring him back. Which is a funny thing Nagash can do, is like revive your Terrorgeist. But like all of these guys ultimately, and then I have the big thing I haven't talked about was the presence of companion weapons on a bunch of this stuff. It's been mentioned in the chat, but yes, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about it. A bunch of these guys have companion weapons too. What? I'm sorry, what? So, like, again, that like lack of synergy. When it comes to your normal infantry and cavalry units, you have a bunch of synergies that these guys are that they're going to benefit from. Like, the whole game is made to buff them. The faction abilities buff them. Like, all that stuff is made to work with them. Meanwhile, you've got monsters who already have almost no synergy with any of the other rules, unless it's like a monster specific faction, which means it's bad. And then they often are riven through with companion weapons, right? So yet again, you cannot buff them with anything. So even for the few things that theoretically should or could buff them, you can't buff them. So it's just a double whammy. Thanks, I hate it.
Yeah. The solo monsters in general just add. And even your potential exceptions that we're going to talk about momentarily are
on the line. I agree. Let's talk about those potential exceptions, Paul. Okay, so here's my potential exception list. This might be actually the list. I think I might be missing one. I think it's actually 5 total. Okay, let me talk through these. Why I think they're potential exceptions. The regular Gargant, when taken in packs of 3, it's 36 wounds on a 5-up save for 400 and some odd points. So I don't remember exactly off the top of my head. It actually is one of the more damaging units in the Sons of Badmont army. An army that basically does approaching 0 damage. A very, very bad army right now. Like, Sons of Badmont is truly in a terrible place right now. But this is probably your best damage option. It can also be chain activated, like you can fight with Broad and then have 3 babies next to him and he can pull them into combat, right? There's no companion weapons on them. They can actually take all the buffs from Broad and from everything else. And like they're decent, honestly. I don't hate baby giants. I think they're fine. Good control, good damage. Not 400 points worth of damage. Like 400 points worth of some other unit is still doing way more damage than these guys. But like good damage by the terms of the Sons of Badmont army, right? And so.
But my only pushback on that is in the context of that army, they're not playing the role of a solo monster.
Right.
They're almost playing the role of infantry.
Yep. A completely fair pushback that I accept. Yeah, it's like, well, yeah, you're cheating, Vince, because you're taking 3 of them in a unit.
Yeah. And functionally, they're basically infantry in that army.
So I agree with you, but I think it's like I'll put it on list because it is technically a non-hero monster, right? So it's like it is. It gets into this list by a technicality, but I agree with your pushback all the same.
Yeah, I mean it's technically correct, which is the best kind of correct.
Yes,
But it's still
as we know.
correct.
Um, the middle pig. So this is not the hero pig, nor is it the small pig. It's the one that's like, I don't remember what his name is. Something something with hack and crew, basically. Tusk. It's not the boss. That's what it comes down to. What are the big pigs' names? Hold on, I'll pull up the actual name so we can. Even in an army I play, I literally have no idea what this idiot is named because I'm like, yeah, it's that one. Maw Grunta with hack and crew. There you go. That's the one. Okay. So the Maw Grunta with hack and crew is the middle pig, Paul. And the reason this guy is okay is, so first of all, he's 270 points for one of them. Okay. He's not a hero, but he obviously doesn't cost a drop, blah, 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 blah. He can actually get his attacks up to like some big damage. Okay. Because its tusks can go up to damage 5 pretty easily. Now those hit on 4s, but he gets 5 attacks, right? And it is a companion weapon, which sucks, but all out attack will still push it to 3s. Okay. So he's got lots of attacks. The main Choppas are 2 damage. The Maw Gruntas Trottas are D3 damage. They hit on 5s. I don't want to talk about that. But the tusks are potentially damage 5. But the reason you like this guy is because he has a really good rampage. He's relatively easy to build momentum with right now, but his rampage is in your movement phase. If this unit is in combat, it can move a distance up to its move characteristic. It can pass through models and the combat ranges of enemy units, but it cannot end that move in combat. Then pick each enemy unit that this unit passed across during that move to be the targets. Roll a d3. For each target on a 2-up, they take mortal damage. Then this unit gains 2 momentum points. This is actually a good rampage because, like, if he gets in combat, the problem with with all the pigs, if they get in combat, they can often get stuck, right? This guy can run his way out, do free damage, build momentum automatically, and then charge back into combat and basically be automatically at momentum 3, right? Mm-hmm. Which gives him those 5 damage attacks. Now he's got to survive. He's 12 health on a 3-up save. But, that's decent enough. He's okay. He's okay. I've used him. I've been happy enough with him. You still have to use him correctly. He's still fragile and too expensive. Like 270 points for 12 health is still crazy. Okay? But at least he has some kind of function. So I'm okay with that. Huey, sorry if this is a dumb question, but does he only answer read posts by people who are paying? No, of course not. Huey, I read everything. Sorry, I saw your questions earlier. I just got locked in. I kept meaning to come back to you. You asked me a question earlier about have I seen anything on auxiliary units? You asked that question. And the answer is no. I really haven't found any use for them I like. Because I just in the end think giving the command point away like that is so crippling. Actually, what it does is that it's just generally not worth it. And I haven't seen any. One, I don't really love spam lists, but 2, I haven't seen any unit that's good enough that made me want to do that. No, it's all good. And I apologize if I'm saying your name wrong. I'm just gonna call you Matt. Okay. Hey, we're glad to have you. I'm very sorry, buddy. I was locked in talking about these units and I kept saying to myself, you got to go back and answer Matt's question, and then I forgot. So I am very sorry. I do read everything all the time and try to answer everyone, buddy. Okay. Yeah, so there you go. Sorry. I got locked in today. Normally I'm pretty good about bouncing back and forth. But anyways, this is like my definition of okay monster. If you took like 70 points off of him, I'd be like, yeah, he's good. Right? Where like he can actually do some damage. Okay. Next up, Alarith, Spirit of the Mountain. right? So the not the guy, not the named guy,
Yeah.
right? This dude has a big hammer that does a ton of damage, right? He's making 5 damage swings. And he weakens Rend. He's pretty tough. Again, if he gets charged by like somebody who does crit mortals, he has a terrible day. But he's like a, what, 3 up, 6 up, ignoring 1 Rend all the time with 5 damage hammer swings. That's pretty good. This is actually a good monster. Slow.
Yeah, sure.
Right?
He has a big, cool croquet mallet.
He does have a big, cool croquet mallet. Yeah, he's gonna croquet your face real hard. So I was playing a doubles game. And my partner was Lumineth, yeah. Mm-hmm. And we were up against, and I was like, I had some of my troops standing near this thing, right. And my opponents were playing. One of my opponents was playing, had FEC and had Usharon. Mm-hmm. Okay. Do you know what Usharon's spell is?
No, I do not, off the top of my head.
Okay. Usharon's spell is like this infected by madness or something. It's like a touch of madness or whatever. If he gets it off, he picks one of your weapon profiles, and then you make the full round of attacks with one of those weapon profiles against any model of Usharon's choice within range of the model he targeted. Okay. I have never clenched harder for an unbind than when somebody, like, my unit was standing right next to this dude, this stone guy, and he gets he gets targeted by that madness, and I was like, oh no, that giant 5 damage hammer is about to come thundering down and remove my unit. By the good grace of our Lord Sigmar, I got off the unbind, and then quickly was like, okay, get away from this guy, quick, get away. He's too dangerous to stand near. But anyways, yeah, he's all right. The problem with him is, again, he is like, if you look at the wound to point ratio, the control, all that stuff, he still has, this is like one of the better monsters, actual damage wise, and he's still not taken in any serious competitive Lumineth lists. Or like, I will say this, 90% of competitive Lumineth lists wouldn't take him in there. Okay. Gopherman X said, it's not looking great if you have to cut 70 points off of one of the better monsters to make it go from okay to good. No, it's not, Gopherman. That's what I'm saying. This guy's much of the same boat. He's so expensive. Then the turtle. What do you think about turtle, Paul?
I mean, friend Constantino seems to like it.
Yes, Dinos has shown that the turtle can do work, yeah. He's, he flies, got decent enough speed, does decent enough damage, provides a good buff, probably a little on the expensive side even still. But he can anchor an army. This is the other thing I'd like to see monsters be able to do, is like hit on all the categories, right? Like, he's not best in class in anything, but he does enough of everything that he can be the center point of the army and serve an interesting synergistic role, right? I agree, Assistant Ref. He's good. He's a little overpriced. I think that's the thing. Like, I think the turtle is the best all-arounder on this list of potential exceptions. Like, I would give him a solid 7.5. He's playable. He's probably even good. Actually good. So, that's nice. They got that going for him.
Yeah. Is
there any other monster you can think of? Chat, question to you as well. Is there any other monster that I'm not thinking of? Because I really think this might be an exhaustive list. Yeah. I'm trying to think if there's any other monster that is worth putting on the table in the game right now, currently.
I think part of it is there's just not that Huracan. Many that aren't also
right.
heroes.
Sorry, Huracan. That is the other guy. I knew there was one guy I was forgetting. Thank you, Clarissa. The fox.
Oh, yeah.
Because he is technically a monster. That's right. Okay.
That's kind of correct, once again.
Absolutely. No, I didn't talk about the Ark of Sotek. Really, you think the Ark of Sotek Bastillodon is good? Okay, I'll have to give it another look. I really didn't think it translated over very well. Van Russell, you'll have to tell me what you like about him. but I don't know. I looked at him and I was underwhelmed, but maybe I missed something. Seraphon's not like a main army I play, so I could have easily missed something. But yes, certainly the Huracan is in there. Spear of the Wind has been like a million lists. Yes, very competitive. See, assistant ref, I don't like the cockatrice. I don't think he's actually worth it. I think he just like doesn't actually function in the way people want him to function. I think he just
Also,
dies
it's
to
not
like
really
almost
great.
anything. Like shooting, somebody's just going to charge him, not go fight the unit you want to fight. Like, I get it. He stands behind Chaos Warriors and does his thing, but like, somebody's just going to shoot him to death or whatever. Like, it's completely, he becomes such a target and he's really fragile. Okay. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So, there you go. All right. The point is, even if there's a couple more we missed, the Keeper is a hero, Lewis. So this is non-hero monsters. But the Keeper wouldn't even be on this list, even if I was allowing in hero monsters. She's in a bad way. Okay. Next unit class, Paul. This is one I've got a real stick up my rear about. Okay. And that is Chariots. Right?
Yeah.
So you've just done some talking about. You're good, Lewis. It's no problem. Let's talk about Chariots. Paul, talk to me about what's wrong with Chariots. Why don't these actually work?
Most of them do absolutely nothing. That's really the thing. The only thing that I can say for them is that a lot of them are relatively fast and cheap. That's like the best I can say for them. They generally do almost no damage, have almost no synergies with anything else.
Yep.
They can take up a decent amount of real estate because they're on a decent sized base, but they're just too weak defensively to really make that worthwhile. They're not good with control.
Yep.
And these things could have a good role, right? Like they could all just be solid glass cannons or solid like prospector scouty kind of units. But like the Slanesh one in particular, it does almost no damage.
Oh god,
it's
they're
not
so
fast
bad.
enough.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's on my list of potential worst units in the game.
I think the Hellflayer is easily one of the worst units in the game right now at its current points.
Yep.
The Seeker Chariot's right there behind it. They're both like, they're neck and neck. The Hellflayer is more expensive than a unit of 5 Hellstriders. And the 5 Hellstriders have more control, definitely do more damage, have more utility, are faster, and have 8 more wounds. Oh, by the way, sorry, it's the same price. Let me restate this, Paul. That the Hellstriders are cheaper. It's the same price, Paul, as 5 Slickblade Seekers.
So stupid.
Which is 20 wounds compared to 7. What are we even talking about here? I apologize. I was using the Seeker Chariots, the Hellstriders. The Hellflayer is the Slickblade Seekers. It's a joke. Right?
Yeah. I think a great role for these that would make sense if you line it up like thinking about like verisimilitude. What are Chariots going to wreck historically in combat? Like they're going to charge into a crowd of infantry and just slice and dice through them.
Right. Break up formations. That's right. Yep.
Yeah. So all kinds of anti-infantry bonuses, those kind of like impact hits where, the abilities that are like horde thinner sort of things. Like they hit a unit and you roll a die for everything in the unit. Every 6 does mortal damage.
Right. Yep. So like some people just say, like Cygnus says they should lift things when they charge and die easy if they don't. Letting Chariots use power through for free was such an obvious thing to make Chariots not terrible. Yep, absolutely.
Better version of power through also is a great option.
Yeah, which like one they gave to like one or two of the chariots like a slightly improved power through, and it's on the really bad chariots where they were like, "Oh, these are so bad, we've got to give them something." Yeah, having 3d6 charge base, like doing. I love your idea of like having almost a horde buster on the charge, like roll a die for each model in the unit on a 6, they take immortal. That'd be great. Anything, something, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
do something. I agree. Matt pointed out that the Burning Chariot is even worse. It was bad in third edition and somehow it got even worse. I agree. Like, it's it's just like it's wild how bad it is. Yes, the Burning Chariot at 6 health and a 5 up save. Yep. What is happening here?
Breeze takes him down.
The Stormcast Chariot is the only one that can actually do like kind of anything, and that's just because it has enough wounds to sort of survive more than than like getting incidentally killed by other skirmishing units, right? And
Really, yeah.
yeah,
I think
and
another
even then it's not
good
good.
role that some of these could have is there's a decent number of them that have shooting attacks,
Yeah,
and just being like fast out on the flanks, harassing, throwing a half decent amount of damage around to just be harassing
mm-hmm.
and breaking up formations. Having those abilities that are like it makes them -1 to hit for
Sure.
until the end of the turn.
Yep. Throwing nets on them, right?
Yep.
Like, do something. The main problem with them, with this whole class, is that they have no role in the current game.
Yeah.
Okay? Because in the current game, which has become so focused around infantry blocks and cavalry blocks, right? A little single block, well, a little single unit, I should say, right? With like low health, low defense, low damage, has no purpose. There's nothing this does. Like,
Right.
there's better prospectors. There's just like they need to have some kind of defined role. And I like your take on it. Like, having it be something where you could imagine that they give these guys ranged attacks or attack, or even like when they melee and charge in. Like, again, each one could be different, right? We could design different scrolls. We don't need general rules across. But you could do a lot of like often giving them free power through, or making it so when they hit they can leave, or making it so when they hit and attack, they um they cause some kind of penalty, or they shoot and cause some kind of penalty, right? So they kind of want to, like you said, like be like working around the edges, going in, hitting, leaving, or moving around the edge, shooting, causing some debuff, so that way the other unit comes up and hits them, right? Like, you could imagine different types of roles, right?
Mhm.
That you could give each chariot synergistically with their army that would be good, right? Like, the Slanesh chariot could be really fast. They could all 3d6 charge and automatically like retreat at the end of combat or something like that, right? Like, you could imagine that kind of stuff being the rule the Slanesh one has. Whereas the Stormstrike chariot has like, yes, it's bows, but it's the one that does like the super big impacty hits, right? It's meant to just like totally crash through enemy lines and blow them up, right?
Right.
The Chaos chariot could be the one that like powers through very easily for free, and like can even power through the enemy models, right? Where it can just like literally rampage directly through the line and pop out on the other side and like threaten the back line because it's just marauding through them, right? The Burning chariot could be one that has like the real shooting attacks and causes like, weird flame burning automatically or with some kind of bonus, or makes it so your weird flame does more, right? Like, oh, if they get hit by this, not only are they burning, it's weird flame, but not only are they burning, but then your burning also has this extra secondary effect as long as they've got that the special burning chariot burning, right? Like, again, it's not hard. You just had to like write the rules, give some defined role for them to do.
I mean, these things, they all could have so much flavor without a lot of effort. And what we got with all of these is like low fat, unflavored ice milk.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Matt said, to be fair, the Drake Spawn Chariot has impact hits on any charge phase and +1 damage on charges and a 4-up save. Yeah, and the problem is it's still not good enough, Matt. Like, I agree. It's like one of the better of them, but it's still fun. The fundamentals of it then just work against it. Because, again, these units are like fundamentally bad because of their lack of controlled defense and wounds versus their points, right? So you got to compensate for that in a big way, right?
Right.
But I agree with you that like that stands out as like at least it's doing something minimal. So I just wish they had really like thought about exactly the best of the worst. I really wish they had kind of thought about these individually as units and said, what is this thing's function within this army? Because we are designing a game where these things are going to have no actual role. Right? Assistant Ref said, Chariots were not good historically either. Maybe they were going for historical accuracy by making them bad. It's just better to take Cav as the real world answer traditionally as well. You're not wrong. But hey, there you go. So anyways, yeah. By the way, there is no potential exceptions category to this one because it does not exist. I do not think there is actually a single chariot in this game worth taking right now.
Yep. Completely agree.
Assuming we're not counting the Doom Wheel as a chariot, which I am not. I am counting it as its own weird thing. And even then the Doom Wheel is bad, but it's my pet unit. But it is bad. It's not good.
Yep. Also, why is this not keyworded?
Right, sure. Why did chariot not get a keyword? Yeah. Right.
Yeah, there's enough of them.
Sure. Yeah. Well, it's a machine, Paul, that's about war. It's a machine for doing war, you see. So it's artillery. No, it's a war machine.
It shouldn't be in the same category as our next category, which it often is.
God Santa, no, I don't think so. Said, are you boring for wanting a rock, paper, scissors type system? You just have to be very careful with those. I think it's good. They tried to lean in that to some degree, which I like. Like, they did try to do that. The problem is they made a huge rock and the paper can't cover it. That's the issue. Yeah. Ooh, you might have got me there, Jaunty. Jaunty said the black coach is okay. That might actually be a 5.1. Ooh. Because everything in Nighthaunt is just automatically so good. All right, I take it back. The one exception, I will grant it to you, is the black coach. You got me, Jaunty. You got me. It's the black coach. Because of the Nighthaunt bump, right? It managed to actually be good enough to get across the line. There you go.
There it is.
Okay, we got there. All right, my last category. Maybe is this the saddest category? I don't know. I'll say that this category makes me very sad that we are here. That category is artillery.
It has so much potential.
Classic part of it, right? Like classic part of your sort of army silhouette. Going way back in Warhammer Fantasy. Like you could make an argument with Chariots that like, look, Chariots were never that big of a part of a game. I'm not saying they weren't there. There were plenty of Chariots in Warhammer Fantasy. I loved, everybody loved their Tyrnok Chariots and their Beastmen Chariots. And, I've had a Tomb King's all Chariot army. Okay. I have more Chariots than you do. Okay. So like, don't come after me, Chariot lovers. All right. I have 21 painted Tomb King's Chariots in just the regular guys. I'm not talking about the special character Chariots. So back off. All right. I love Chariots. But artillery, certainly there are armies that but they were always like a onesie, twosie sideline thing meant to do impact hits and yada yada, meant to double charge with something, right? Artillery in the game has largely just been non-existent in 4th. Okay. Mm-hmm. Now, there are a couple of exceptions. We'll talk about it. It's very limited. I didn't write any down, but because I want to talk through them. But there are a couple of limited exceptions when you're using a specific list. The problem with these is there's no generically good artillery. There's artillery that's good in a specific list. Okay. Paul said, "Don't cry for me, Arjun Chariot." Yes, exactly. That's right, Paul. Okay. So I got here. It doesn't matter what I picked, but I picked the cannon, the new cannon, the beautiful new cannon from Cities, the beautiful new warp blaster from Skaven, two new pieces of artillery, both garbage, both dead on arrival. The Lumineth ballista, and then the Stormcast one that's also going away. So like whatever. It's not long for this world, but I picked it because it technically has been legal for all of Fourth, and yet still here we are. Yep. So, okay. Why are they bad, Paul?
Because they're typically about the same range as other shooting units. They're less mobile, and they have no control, and they are just too expensive for what they do. And your other shooting units do the same or more damage.
There we are.
So they have no role.
That's right.
Like, the easy fix is add, 25% to all of their range.
Yep.
At least. And bump up their damage a little bit.
Yep.
And, like, all of a sudden they have a role. You have a thing that can sit in the corner of the battlefield and just shoot at stuff endlessly, and your opponent is going to have a hard time dealing with it. Because it's just out of range.
And we could open, now that you can't shoot in combat, we opened up the door to play the classic way artillery played for, again, Warhammer Fantasy Battles from 1983 to 2015, where you had your cannons behind the line and you were trying to protect them until somebody got their skirmishers, flankers, deep strikers, whatever, around and got into combat with it and shut it off. Right? Yep. That was the game. How many shots were you actually going to get out of this thing? Right? And that's what we opened the door to. And then they went ahead and gave all of these units basically the same range as, like, guy with bow. Right? So, and this is nothing more than knee-jerk. This is absolutely a knee-jerk reaction to the general complaints, the endless complaints about that people don't like getting shot, that people find shooting NPE. And they overcorrected so bad that all artillery pieces became garbage, because now people just use shooting units. They still left shooting units good, but when they shortened all the ranges, the only shooting units that became good were those that could effectively move around.
Yeah.
Or drop in from reserve where they could be actually utilized. You nailed it exactly. Right?
These just have no unique role, and anything else that does something similar is better.
Right. So it's like, what are we doing here? There's literally no purpose to these.
And the fix is just not that complicated. Increase the range 25 to 50%. Honestly, like, I think these could go really long range for some of them.
I agree. They should be super long range. Like these things should often be around 30 inches at least, and that's still silly. Like, the fact that that people are lofting bow shots farther than some of these artillery pieces is wild, right?
And I would say increase the potential damage that they do, but if they're at, like, long range, they're -1 to hit, something like that.
I mean, there's so many things you could do with it. Absolutely. Daniel Segal said, is AOS just infantry and cavalry fighting in the middle of the table? No, definitely not. It's really not. Because, like, if you want to go back and watch the best units episode with the Significant 7, like, obviously you've got your prospectors working around the edges, getting you battle tactics. You're moving around. It does do a good job. Most of the battle plans actually do an excellent job of, like, breaking up your army and making it be in different places. You're usually having lots of fights around the board, right? This is really, like, there's plenty of shooting that's happening. It's just happening from like 6 long strikes, right? Who lighting dropped in, or like 6 Jezzails that are like 3 claw stepsing ahead in the enemy turn to get themselves into proper position and then firing, right? Or because they have like a 24-inch range or whatever, right? It's that kind of stuff, right? And so, like, These also, in general, don't really respond to like the size of the troops. Like, there's a few artillery pieces that are like +1 to hit if you're attacking 10 or more, or, something like that. There's not a lot of that though, right? They could do. I'd like to see more of that kind of thing scattered around, where like these are the natural sort of scissors to the paper of infantry, or whatever you want to say, right? Okay, so I did do an exception slide here, Paul, because they're not generic exceptions, they're specific exceptions. I want to talk through them, okay? Yeah. The potential exceptions are the Warp Lightning Cannon, all right?
Absolutely.
With an engineer in the proper scryer list with support, okay? Where he's got an engineer to babysit him. So it's a very sort of expensive thing you have to do. In general, you have to build around it. In general, it will fire twice if not rallied. You can rally it, which is funny, and heal it. By the way, I had a Warp Lightning Cannon in the last Skaven game I played. I fired it once. Okay. Managed to do 2 mortal wounds, and then blew myself off the table because I rolled 6 ones. So that was good. That's good. Classic. Yeah. Classic Skaven chicanery. I wasn't sad about it, by the way. I was like, yep, okay, cool. Like, that's just, you play Skaven, that's what happens, right?
Yeah. If you're playing Skaven, you have to like mentally prepare for that. You have to accept it going in, that random dumb stuff is going to happen to you from your own units.
That's right. Oh, thank you. John T also said there's also manifestations now, which makes artillery extra garbo, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because people could just easily toss manifestations into your artillery and then shut them off, right? So,
don't a bunch of the manifestations also have like anti-war machine for some reason?
Yes, they do. Which is just the funniest thing. I actually got, who was I fighting that actually used that? Somebody attacked my Medusa on Chariot, because that's a war machine, right? Or whatever. Yeah, it came up at Holy Havoc, which was very funny. With like one of the manifestations is anti-war machine. Anyways, that's one potential exception. And I'm talking about an exception that I just literally said killed itself and did no damage, as like holding it up as a good example, right? I just want to point out the irony here.
Yep.
Okay. The second one is the Mortek crawlers, if built in the Mortek crawler list. And you take like 2-3 of them and they have the appropriate support. Again, it's like a huge build around list, but I do think it's viable. I've played against it. It's like, it can do work. Again, there are certain lists that it will just like roll over and die to, that it's like really bad against. But against like a lot of lists, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. So
yeah, I think one of the other issues with these, I feel like they should be a unit that you can just take one of these artillery pieces and stick it in the corner or stick it behind your lines.
Yep.
And it'll be a thorn in your opponent's side the whole game.
Yeah, back in the day when I was building my Empire armies or whatever, right? Or my Skaven armies in Warhammer Fantasy, I just took a cannon or a Warp Lightning Cannon or something, and that was it. Like, I wasn't worried about support pieces, right? I just took the thing, and it was there, and it, like, put pressure on my opponent to move forward, right? That was its job. Now, cannons at various times became laser-guided missiles. Like, I'm going all the way back to when I had to guess range the weapons on my cannons. I still have all my training from that. People will be like, well, I'll like move and I'll be like, okay, make this shot. And they're like, well, how do you know you're in range? I'm like, I'll measure it if you want, but I'm there. Trust me.
Yep.
So like so I think that's an exception. But like, that's probably the list right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think if there's anything else right now. I have played around with Plague Claw catapults a few times. They're pretty cheap. they actually do pretty good damage to infantry and have a nice little sort of situation going on with what they do. They might be also on the potential exception list. They don't need any support, which is nice. Like, you can't buff them. There's no synergy. But they also don't need babysitters. You just take them. They are kind of the classic example of what I was talking about. So that's kind of an interesting one because it is like actually very damaging against infantry, big infantry blocks, or even like big cav units. Pretty accurate. It kind of like works how I would expect artillery to work, and it's pretty good range. So like it's relatively cheap. I don't remember off the top of my head, 130, 140, somewhere in that range. Like, it's not bad. It's the kind of thing where, like, if you lose it or someone gets it, you're like, okay, it's not the end of the world, right? I think that's important. It's kind of another maybe okay one. I think it's kind of the sleeper hit, the Plague Claw. I think people generally don't take it because, again, for that same price point, you could just like take 3 more Rattling guns and like, okay.
Yeah.
But I hate that argument just because I hate people running around with just massive weird weapon teams. Although just armies of rats with machine guns is funny. Like, that's funny as a concept. So.
Yeah.
There you go. Alex says, my favorite artillery is when my opponent has spent points on artillery. George Sutherland, have you played the Old World? Do you mean like the tabletop game, George? Or you're asking me like, have I played Old World? Yeah, I played a ton of Old World. I love Old World. It's fun. I play Tomb Kings and Bretonnia, so I'm not getting like a bunch of artillery usage, but I generally have a trebuchet or a Screaming Skull catapult or such in my mix. Yes. When I'm playing that, I play those 2 armies. And yeah, I love playing Tomb Kings in the Old World is like a legitimately one of my favorite things. Like, it plays exactly how I want it to play. It feels really good. No, it's fine, George. No issue. I really like playing my Tomb Kings in Old World. So they did a really great job with the design on them. You're good, buddy. It's all fine. Someday we've got to do another Old World show. I haven't tried the Bombard yet, Cygnus, because I haven't run that version of that army. I haven't run many of their equivalent of like the Armies of Renown or whatever they're called. Zerg Smasher. I am a big time Tomb Kings player. I mean, I have like, I didn't at the end of Warhammer Fantasy, I totaled it. I haven't retotaled it in Old World, but I mean, I had 13,000 points. So, but we will do another Old World show at some point. Absolutely. Probably, like, I'm sure in the holiday period, we're going to have some open shows. And so I'd like to do one, kind of revisit the Old World. Maybe we could get Dayton on. That'd be nice. It'd be good to have talk to that guy. I haven't talked to him for a while. Anyways, Paul, let's have a little discussion here at the end about the unit type that is on the border of this as a unit type. Okay? Mm-hmm. And that is the Beast unit type.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I think most of the beasts, you can really say the same things that we said about the solo monsters. But they're just smaller.
Yeah. The thing with most beasts is there are plenty of beast units that get play. Dire wolves, stuff like that. Right? But like the thing with beasts is I'm generally more okay with them because even though it's interesting because they did decide to go with like giving them a generic rule. It's so funny how much they're generally against like a unit type having a set rule. Like again, we talked about chariots. Chariots could have just been like, if they're chariots, we just put power through free on all the chariots, right? Could have just done that. Okay. I'm actually not as much for that. I'd rather see them again designed in a bespoke fashion. Okay. Where like each one is paired to its synergies and its things. But the trick with beasts is I think a lot of them end up being okay as sort of prospector units where they are cheap and I'm not expecting them to hold objectives. So like their control 1 doesn't actually matter. They just need literally 1 control because I'm expecting them to walk across a line and take the flanks. I'm expecting them to be literal chaff and die. Or I'm expecting them to take their land and they walk up to a piece of terrain that nobody's within a mile of. Right? And so when they're beasts and they're like around 100 points and they're fast, that's the other thing. A lot of them tend to have a fairly high speed. I don't actually care. They're just literally throwaway chaff. And I think that is like, so that's why I'm saying I think they do sometimes have a role, because classically they're actually, the interesting part about Warhammer has been that there was classically a role for bad units, if as long as those bad units were cheap, right? Like,
Yeah.
standing there to die, pawns effectively, right, is like a valid role. And I always thought that was interesting. And so I think beasts are somewhat filling that now. I do think some of the beasts are like too expensive. I don't think they've knocked in enough of a penalty onto a lot of them for that control penalty and how fragile they are and all that.
Like beasts of Nurgle way too expensive, but like what they do is good.
Yeah.
Like 100 points.
Sure. Like there are some that are just like legitimately awful. Fiends or whatever they are in Slanesh are just like whoa, woof. Those are like really terrible beasts. But like, you know, fast fodder, which is what a lot of them falls into, as Odd Many said, right? Like, I think if they're well, I think there's enough of them that are designed enough okay that it's hard for me to say that to like write off the entire category. Does that make sense? To me, they're more like a 50-50. Like, if I was going to rate them, it'd be like C minus. You know what I'm saying? Like, you'll pass the class, I guess, but you've got a lot of work to do.
Yeah. They're academic probation.
Right. Right, exactly. Like, you ain't keeping your scholarship, but you know, you're okay. I'm not going to fail you. Right? Yeah, exactly. Matt said Griffhounds. Yeah, I mean, exactly. Yeah, like Griffhounds.
Yeah, those are great.
Yeah. So, like, I just think there's enough that, like, get over the line. As long as they kept them fast, cheap, that's it. Just be that. Right?
Yeah.
So, because the expectations are low, right? Then as long as they understood that and priced them accordingly, then and kept them, like, your thing is to be fast and die. Oh no. What is my purpose? Your purpose is to be fast and die. Oh. Right. But yeah. So that was the last one that I thought was like, it's interesting because that one's probably the most like you could actually just make two big piles. They're the only unit category, I think, or role category, I think, that like legitimately straddles the fence.
Yeah. Some of them I think they nailed.
Right. Right.
The others are hot garbage.
Garbo. Yeah, it's so funny. It's like a best of times, worst of times type of thing, right? Yeah. So, yep. All right. Anything else we want to say there, Paul, that we want to leave everybody with? This is your feeble four, folks. Do work.
Yeah. I think all of these are very easily fixable. I think none of them just fixable with points.
Yeah, I think there are individual, I think potentially there are individual examples out of what we've talked about that could be fixable with points. But a lot of these are going to need rules. Like, categorically, you're right. They need rules in addition. Like, I wouldn't take Seeker Chariots at any points value. Right? You get, like, if you made them 10 points, then instantly they just become like a spam bunch of nonsense where it's like, okay, sure, in an imaginary like TTS game where I can just like copy pasta 50 of them on the table, ha ha ha, that's very funny, right?
Yeah.
But like there is no actual feasible points value where they're takeable, that kind of thing. You just get in the race to the bottom instantly, right?
Yep.
So yes, like some of these they need the rules tweaks. Go through, let's see them. There you go. Bronny says, I have another vote for bad unit category, 10-man chaff infantry. Yeah, that's an interesting one, Branu. That's interesting. Yep. Yeah,
they're mostly crap too.
Yeah, they are mostly crap. I'd have to think about that one because there's also like really weird, really good examples of them where they have like a built-in movement or teleport or something and end up becoming very good prospectors, right? So like Night Runners or the Hunters of Huichi or whatever, you know, like
Wild Core Hunters are pretty good.
Yeah, yeah. Paul Wagner says assembling 50 of those chariots would leave no feeling in your fingers. It wouldn't leave you fingers. Your fingers are gone. You just stubs. You'd look like a railroad worker, like a senior railroad worker in 1870s in the 1870s. There's like two thumbs left. Yeah. So, there you go. There's a lot of useless underworld stuff. Yeah, I mean, yeah, certainly. I mean, but will it stay? Will it go? Who knows with all that? I mean, there it is. So,
Mhm.
yes, I agree. Leia said Night Runners are Chads. Yeah, I mean, they're one of the best things in the Skaven army. I hate it. I hate that the ugliest sculpt in the world is is like one of the absolute must-have units, but here we are. So,
Mhm.
all right. I thought the hunters were in like weird groups of 8, but I don't know. Anyways, cool. Paul, hey buddy. Appreciate you. Thanks for coming on and talking about this with me.
Thanks for having me as always. It's always fun.
Of course. And look, hey everybody, if you haven't hit like yet or hit subscribe, do that thing now. Also, don't forget to check out Paul's channel. It'll be linked down below. He's doing a little exploration like we did above, where he's actually fixing a bunch of these units, going in and retooling them. So go check out Radio Free Hammer Hall. And so, yeah, go do that. Otherwise, if you want to support the channel, in addition to hitting like and subscribe and sharing it, all those free things, you can actually look down below. What's down there? Why, it's fun links, affiliate links where you can pick up your hobby stuff. Doesn't cost you extra. In fact, it often saves you money. And it helps give the channel a nice kickback, which is really cool. You can also hit up Uncle Adam and I's games. Don't forget, our newest zine is out now. Just came out a week and a half ago. The new zine has our brand new game, The Great Goblin Gamut, in there, as well as updates for Reign in Hell, Majestic 13, and Death Wizards. So check all of that out. It's only $8, $8 for the PDF, but all of our games are linked down there. And then, of course, there's our Patreon. So focused on review and feedback and taking your next step on your hobby journey. But hey, as always, Paul, thank you so much, brother. I appreciate you coming on. Paul Wagner asked how many hosting moments for Paul. 17. Oh gosh, I don't know. Yes, I will put Paul's link down below. Look for it right after the show. And Matt said, Paul, do you ever get feedback from GW on your stuff? I'm gonna answer for you, Paul, which is no, none of us ever do, because they don't openly comment on anything. But I know they watch stuff. They do watch stuff.
Yeah. I know I a while ago, I know Ben Johnson said like directly to me in a DM that he does watch my videos and pay attention to them. So,
Yeah.
but he's not really like in the design studio anymore, is he?
He moved to kind of an adjacent position, but he's still there.
Yeah.
Yep. But yes, they're very anti like they wouldn't comment on YouTube or something like that. Every so often you'll get like a if you talk to them in person, they'll say something. But yeah. Hey, thank you everybody. Really appreciate it. Next week, Slaves to Darkness review. So
Yes.
that's going to be a lot of fun. We'll see what has become of the ruinous powers and their dark servants. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Paul, thank you very much. And we'll see you next Wednesday.